All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started while folks are still coming in. Welcome, everyone. Bienvenido a todos, and welcome to our World Water Week session today entitled From Paris to Kunming, Nature-Based Solutions for Climate and Biodiversity. My name is Ingrid Timbo. I am the Policy Director at the Alliance for Global Water Adaptation, or AGWA, and it is my pleasure to moderate today's session. We've packed in a lot in 1 hour, so we're definitely going to dive right in. But before we do that, just one quick note on translation. We are offering simultaneous Spanish-English translation. Next slide, please. So if you have not already, you can download the Interactio app from the Apple Store or Google Play Store and have that on your phone and follow along. There should also be directions for how to do this in the chat as well. So next slide. All right, so this is where we're headed today. We're going to open this session following the introduction here with keynote remarks from Birgit Pickel, the Deputy Director General at the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, or BMZ. And then we're going to take you on a whirlwind tour from Bolivia, from the state of Santa Cruz, all the way to Indonesia, to give some best practice examples of what we're talking about today in terms of integrating climate and biodiversity into our water management plans. And then this is where you come in. We're going to have 2 interactive breakout sessions so you can really dig in to the presentations that we're hearing, ask your questions. You can ask questions through the chat, but during the breakout sessions, that's kind of the dedicated time for questions and conversations with today's expert presenters. After that, we will do a quick reporting back and then close the session. So before we get going, we've got a poll, and you can find the polls located near the Pathable chat as well. So we're going to do a quick survey of the room. Where are you located and which of today's issues touch on your work? And so, as is noted, you can use the Pathable session chat using your account to participate, and we'll give some results later on in the session. Next slide, please. So before I hand it over to Frau Pickel to kick us off, for those who aren't quite as familiar on this topic, I wanted to give kind of a quick history of water in the international climate negotiation space. You often you might hear from folks who are working on water and climate that water itself is never actually mentioned in the 2015 Paris Agreement. But the reality is if you actually read the text, you will see that water's footprint is really evident throughout. And some examples of that are in Article 5 of the Paris Agreement. It talks about the protection of forests and other carbon sinks like wetlands and peatlands, which we're talking about today, the protection of ecosystems, and also safeguarding food production. And so this touches on biodiversity, water, and climate all together. Next slide, please. So prior to 2016, our kind of global water community, we didn't really have an official voice within the UNFCCC, which makes sense because the UNFCCC is a state-run or country-led process. But starting with COP22, in 2017, water is given a platform through a group called the Marrakesh Partnership for Global Climate Action, or MPGCA, which is the official voice for non-state actors. And since that time, we've really been advocating for a greater awareness of water's critical role for mitigation and adaptation as well. And just as an example of how far we've come, COP26 in Glasgow this year in November will feature the first ever water and climate pavilion at a UNFCCC conference. So we are inviting all of you to get involved with that, and you can absolutely get in touch with me if you're interested in participating in that. I will put my contact information in the chat. So with that, I would like to hand it over to our keynote speaker, Birgit Pickle, who's the Deputy Director General on Global Health, Pandemic Preparedness, and One Health at BMZ. Frau Pickle, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much to dear moderator Ingrid Timbo, and greetings dear Secretary Sandoval, and also hello to all colleagues and participants in this meeting today. It's a real pleasure to be here and participate in the discussion on this important topic. The water crisis in Cape Town 2018 and Chennai 2019, wildfires ongoing last year in Australia and currently in Southern Europe or Madagascar, as well as recent floods just in my neighborhood here, a couple of kilometers away, made it really, really clear. We do feel the impact of climate change on a global scale already. The changing availability of water impacts on our daily lives. And at the same time, the rapidly progressing climate change is one of the severest drivers of biodiversity loss, not only through global warming and rising water temperatures, but also from the accompanying sea level rise and ocean acidification. Water quality defines habitats for species diversity in and along aquatic ecosystems. And at the same time, intact ecosystems and biodiversity are not only key to provide important solutions for the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions, but also to ensure the well-being and climate resilience of vulnerable people. Biodiversity and climate change are inextricably linked. To address this twin challenge of biodiversity loss and climate change, we must urgently turn the tide together. We need transformative change here for that, providing adequate framework conditions on a multilateral level for a whole of government and whole of society approach, and urgent and significant action on the ground will be essential. And we do have these two important international conferences, the COP15 on biodiversity and the COP26 at Glasgow ahead of us to work on these issues. Nature-based solutions constitute powerful actions to tackle climate change and biodiversity loss. For instance, the conversion of floodplains or other wetlands can strengthen flood protection while creating co-benefits for biodiversity, human well-being, or enhanced water storage capacities. Nature-based solutions or ecosystem-based approaches can create important synergies and achieve multiple benefits, bridging the Rio Conventions and the 2030 Agenda. The proposed new global biodiversity framework, already touched upon the COP2015 process, explicitly aims to address those synergies between climate change and biodiversity loss. The upcoming negotiations of the CBD are of enormous importance for this. We need a Paris moment for biodiversity. Germany, together with the EU and its member states, promotes and supports an ambitious new framework. It has to reflect the interdependence of climate change and biodiversity loss and explicitly reference nature-based solutions. The compelling need for nature-based solutions with positive contributions to climate resilience, mitigation, human well-being, and biodiversity should, however, not distract from the challenges of their implementation. To balance trade-offs between economic constraints, climate change objectives, biodiversity protection, and social welfare, nature-based solutions must come with sound social and environmental safeguards. Since 2013, Germany has been supporting international biodiversity efforts with more than 500 million euros per year, of which 400 million are provided from my ministry, the BMZ, which was already mentioned earlier. Water, the water sector with all its facets, water provision, sanitation, and of course, water resources management remains one of the three most important sectors of our work. And it's important to limit climate change impacts. We contribute annually more than 450 million euros of ODA financing to this important sector. In the area of nature-based solutions, we do promote, for example, forest-based approaches for reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation, the REDD+ approach, and for forest landscape restoration. Almost also here, we contribute substantially with 89 million euros per year, for example, in the conservation and restoration of mangroves. Germany and BMZ do remain clearly committed to using these experiences on nature-based solutions and further expanding the support in the future and upscale those experiences, hopefully together with partners to create more impact on the ground. So this is a very important topic you're discussing today. Let me close by wishing you very fruitful deliberations during the next hour, and of course throughout this important World Water Week, as you will probably participate in other events as well. Thank you very much for your attention and for being with us here today.
Thank you so much, Frau Pickel, for joining us and for your call for transformative change, really. It's a very important moment in time right now as we are preparing for these two COPs at the global level. And so what we're hoping to do here is to give some inspiration to the negotiators and others who are working at that kind of national and global level by showcasing the action on the ground, as you also mentioned, is critical. So we're going to go from Germany now to Bolivia for our first presentation from Alejandra Sandoval. Next slide, please. Alejandra is the Secretary of Environment Departmental, the Departmental Government of Santa Cruz in Bolivia, and she is going to share what is going on in Santa Cruz. Alejandra, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. A few days ago, I was at Peniel. Peniel is a rural community 4 hours from the city, where I saw in the landscape a 3-year-old little girl, same as my child, Lucia, drinking from the same fount where some animals were drinking. And at this moment, I had to rethink what life really means. After the initial shock, I realized that the current system doesn't work. And it's time to really listen to those desperate to help. And that is why I strongly believe that in order to make a real change, we need to have a public policies based on real scenarios, taking into consideration that that kid could be yours in a few years. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the Department of Santa Cruz, with 30% of the national gross domestic product, due to the economic movement generated by its agro-industrial and agriculture sector. Santa Cruz has 16 basins, including the Amazon and Plata macro basin, and it's an example. No, its total area a little bigger than Germany. 30% in volume of Bolivia's forest production is collected here in Santa Cruz. Next, please. Okay, please play the video in the map. Okay, in Bolivia, in the last year, high levels of deforestation have been registered, and 80% was in Santa Cruz. Added to this, forest fires between 2019 and 2020 has affected more than 6 million hectares, as you can see in the graphics. By this time, we have more than 500,000 hectares affected by wildfires. Studies by local foundations and the government of Santa Cruz show that there is a major impact of the basin that supplies water to the entire region. placing the population that inhabits them in a state of considerable vulnerability. Both deforestation and forest fires are factors that deteriorate water quality and causes changes in the water regime in the basins level, increasing the threat of flooding and accelerating both water and wind erosion processes. Next, please. Next. Or please, yeah, okay. Knowing the water is a strategic resource for development of Santa Cruz and Bolivia. The departmental government of Santa Cruz adopted a comprehensive approach for the landscape management. From this perspective, the model proposed that programs and projects are built from the regional level with local residents, such as Mrs. Maria on the picture. I love this picture, it's amazing. And aiming to achieve global policies, in that regard, it raises four aspects. The articulation of the departmental public policy, regional action plans, basing in management plans which integrate programs and projects, and monitoring system which enables the measurement of the department contribution to the country's goals on NDCs and SDGs. Next, please. Okay. Public policy in landscape management for the Department of Santa Cruz implies articulating in territorial development plan with its climate change policy and the Water Act. Operationally, the guidelines and resort for its implementation stand as two central pillars: the climate change strategy as a roadmap for the NDC at departmental level, and the water security strategy, both as linked to programs and plans that the departmental government performs and that are shown in blue on the slide. You can see in each of these plans and programs, public-private alliances are promoted as the main engine for their implementation. Next, please. Okay, the regional actions plan for water resources and adaptation to climate change require the promotion of public-private alliance, the development of differentiated measure for each landscape unit, and the construction of portfolios of programs and projects in which the contribution to the NDCs and SDGs are measured. Next, please. Okay, at the basin level, work in being performed along with the Resilient Landscape Project on the integrated management of water resources in San Martin and Rio Paraguay basins. To promote planning action, basin management plans will be complemented by a water information system and a set of basic information on biodiversity, water quality, water balance, and socio-economic analysis. We are working on development of 5 pilot projects in both basins, which will contribute to the generation of experience regarding management for programs and developing plans and to the assessment of their potential for scaling up and repopulation. Finally, local experience on a financial mechanism will help us the basis to promote others such as the department's water fund. Next, please. Again, among our main challenges, we have identified two: the development of a space for consultation and decision-making on the territory regarding integrated water resource management and risk management based on water resilience, and the development of action plans which integrate a landscape and intersectoral vision. The main influence generated by the public management model based on ecosystem and multi-level landscape are the concurrence of resources and actions from different sectors to achieve water security, as well as climate change mitigation and adaptation goals. The involvement of the private sector and and generation of public-private alliance, including organized civil society. This is our triangle, and a star triangle of this government: public, private, and civil society. Sorry. The contribution to international commitments such as NDCs, the generation of enabling conditions for the management of financial resources. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. It was really, really great to hear about what's going on in Santa Cruz, especially the focus on multi-level and integrated management of natural resources, working with the communities as well as governments at the local, regional, and national level in the San Martin and Rio Paraguay basin. So be really excited and interested to hear about how this project progresses. And so maybe next year we can come back and chat some more. So for all the participants, if you have questions for Alejandra, you can ask those by joining the interactive session, or the interactive breakout session that we'll be having after the next session. So definitely hold your questions for that. So before we fly from Bolivia to Indonesia, let's check in on our polls really quickly. So we've got a second poll up as well. What do you associate with nature-based solutions? And so we'll come back to that one at the end. Looking at our first poll results, it looks like we have a spread between Asia, Europe, North America, Oceania, and Africa as well. So just like our presenters, we're well represented in this virtual space as well. So from Bolivia to Indonesia, we're moving on to our next expert case study presenter. We have two from Indonesia. We have Tunggul Butar, who's a principal advisor at the ProPete initiative, as well as Lenny Christie. So to our Indonesia team, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ingrid, for introducing us. At the moment, unfortunately, our principal advisor, Tunggul Butar, cannot be joined. So, however, there nothing that mean less about our presentation. So, greetings for everybody from East Kalimantan, Indonesia. Please allow me to introduce myself again. My name is Lenny Christie, and actually I have other colleagues here from the project that also present, which is Karlina Kartika, Eri Panca Setiawan, Lena Keller Bisov, and Jamil Gunawan. So we are working for GIZ ProPete, Peatland Management and Rehabilitation Project. a government-to-government project that implements the work in North and East Kalimantan provinces in Indonesia. For these special occasions, I would like to present our activity in East Kalimantan province, especially at Middle Mahakam area in regard to community-based peatland management and restoration. So as you may see on the map here, our work is based on peat hydrological unit established by Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry. At East Kalimantan province, there are 16 peat hydrological units that covers around 342,350 hectares of area. So the largest part of this peat hydrological unit is concentrated in Middle Mahakam area, which you can see in the blue circle here. And next, please. So the Middle Mahakam area peat hydrological units cover 3 districts. Those are West Kutai, Kutai Kartanegara, and East Kutai. So the Middle Mahakam area actually has a lot of unique characteristics. One among others, there are so many lakes, more than 15. Some studies says even around 30 lakes. And it can be more even in rainy season. However, during the dry season, even those 3 largest lakes in the Middle Mahakam area become dry when the locals can also do some temporary agriculture activities. Next slide, please. So this area actually suffers from repeat fires events. 2 biggest fire events recorded occurred in 1982, 83, and in 1997 and 98. So based on a burn scar mapping study conducted in 97 and 98 fire, 76% of Middle Mahakam peat hydrological unit area affected by various level of fire damage. However, nowadays some of this area has been naturally recovered from the fire impact. Next slide, please. So there are around 62 villages lies within and around the peat hydrological units. Out of this, the IZ Profit has identified 12 villages to be supported and focused on to piloting a program called Self-Sustained Peatland Village, or in Bahasa Indonesia we call it Desa Mandiri Peduli Gambut. The Self-Sustained Peatland Village program just recently initiated by Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry. However, those villages have been somehow some part of this program already initiated by the villages, such as sustainable livelihood and proposing the establishment of protected peatland forest area. Next slide, please. So from our studies, the peatland of Middle Mahakam area very rich in biodiversity. We found around 3 forest ecosystem within these peat hydrological units. Those are peat swamp forest, riparian forest, and heath forest. And 2 ethnic groups of the local community use around 80 to 90 species of plants for their basic needs, such as housing, food, medicines, handcraft, and also firewoods. So while for aquatic species, some species have economic value, most of villagers depends also on these fish, especially Belida in Indonesians, or Notopterus bornensis. I hope I pronounce it correctly, which is also an endemic species in the Middle Mahakam area. So for the terrestrial species, there are also some endemic and vulnerable species, which we known as proboscis monkey or bekantan in bahasa Indonesia. Besides that, there is also the icon mammals that critically endangered, which we known as Irrawaddy dolphin. This dolphin also the icon of Samarinda City, the capital of East Kalimantan province. Next, please. So the peatland of Middle Mahakam area actually play big roles for locals, where the peatland is actually the source of their livelihood. They do agriculture, so, also freshwater fishery. They develop stainless bee farming, and also swallow nest cultivations and ecotourism. Next slide, please. So of course, there are also some challenges to the peatland existence, which we mostly know that, for example, land conversions in the past that has been considered, that has not considered the peatland characteristic is the main threat to the peatland sustainability. Some canals were built to drain the peatland and that caused subsidence and increasing of fire risk. Next slide, please. So beside the national and sub-national efforts in managing and restoring the peatland, actually the village level is not less important. They also play the big role. Villagers are directly affected by the quality of peatland due to their livelihood dependency. Self-sustained peatland program is aiming to empower and strengthen the local potential to manage and restore peatland. By integrating planning, sustainable income generation, and peatland monitoring, so we hope this is the elements that can form the self-sustained peatland village. At the planning stage, PROPIT support the peat characteristic data by a thorough peat characteristic survey, as well as biodiversity study and also commodity potential. So for sustainable income generations, the empowerment for the existing practice such as ecotourism is implemented by developing business management capacity, management capacity. So the capacity for peatland monitoring as well as developing fire preventions and response groups also supported by GIZ. So at the end, the self-sustained peatland village program is targeted to fulfill 3 indicators: social, economic, and ecological resilience. Next slide, please. So since there are so many villages in the Middle Mahakam area, and of course we cannot reach all villages, we do some collaboration work with civil society organizations. In East Kalimantan, there are some civil society organizations that also work in supporting sustainable development of villages. So in order to extend the impact and leverage the self-sustained peatland village program, GIZ PROPIT project also collaborate with those GSO through shared learning and resource sharing. So I think that's all our presentations for these happy occasions, and we are looking forward to discuss in depth with you in our interactive breakout sessions. Thank you. Back to you, Ingrid.
Terima kasih, Lenny. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presentation and learning more about what's going on in East Kalimantan to protect and restore such important peatland ecosystems, which of course we know are so important for for livelihoods, for biodiversity, et cetera, but also for mitigating climate change. So we're really thrilled to hear about what's going on. And if you all would like to learn more, then you can join Lenny's breakout group shortly. Before we transition to the breakout groups, I believe is there one more poll? Are we going straight? No, we're going straight into the interactive breakout groups, and we've got about 20 minutes for those. We will need to come back to wrap up at 5 before the hour. So again, there's two options. Group 1, Bolivia, and the presentations in this one will be, the conversation will happen primarily in Spanish, but again, using the Interactio translator, you can also join and listen in English and ask your questions there. For group 2, we've got Indonesia, and that will be moderated by Kelsey Harpham, my colleague at Agua. So I think now is the time, Matthias, I think we can pick the breakout groups. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that's done in Pathable. Oh, down in the corner here in the Zoom, you can join a breakout group. You know, Indonesia is just wrapping up. And once we have, looks like we've got Kelsey here. And once we have our colleagues from the Bolivia breakout group, then we can go ahead and get some closing wrap-up remarks.
Yes, we are back. Thank you.
Perfect. Ana Victoria, would you like to kick us off with a summary?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it will be quite difficult to sum it up just in some words. We had a really vivid discussion. It was really great. We got some more insights into the project, learning about policy differences and difficulties in the watersheds that they're working, different ethnic groups, communication issues regarding languages and how they are working with that. Also, how sustainability is guaranteed in the long run by opening up markets, looking into sustainable agriculture, but also ecosystem tourism practices. And we had a short discourse on green infrastructure in Bolivian cities as well. So we learned that this is still growing and yeah, in baby shoes, as Alejandra said, but I think it's a very interesting topic and there's a lot of things coming up in the next month and years. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ana Victoria. Kelsey, would you like to summarize the Indonesia group?
Yes, thanks, Ingrid. So our discussion focused on the community-based aspects of the ProPeat project, emphasizing that integration of community-based peatland management into village governments really provides new perspectives for rural development. The project focused on working closely with communities, communicating clearly and empowering villagers to promote the long-term success and sustainability of these self-sustaining peatland villages.
Fantastic. Yeah, and just to reiterate, I think what one of the participants, David Hebert Coleman, noted is the challenge of making sure that we are working with and considering Indigenous groups from the start in these types of projects, because oftentimes they are left out or marginalized, and these are lands oftentimes that are very important to them as well. So want to make sure that that is something we're also considering. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We had a great whirlwind tour today from Germany to Bolivia to Indonesia. Thanks for coming along with us on this journey. And we look forward to hearing more about these projects as we move towards COP15 in Kunming, which now postponed to next year, and also COP26 in Glasgow. And if you'd like to learn more, there's some links here, and those will be posted in Pathable as well. Thank you so much to our presenters, everyone who spoke today, and to our co-conveners at GIZ. And so on behalf of the team, I want to wish you all a very great World Water Week, and see you in some other sessions this week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.